This coin almost ended up in a gas station coin jar, but days later, it shocked the world when collectors realized it could be worth nearly $1 million. Yes, we're talking about the 1999 P Mint Mark Georgia State Quarter, one of the most surprising modern coin discoveries in U.S. history. It's a coin millions of Americans have spent, tossed in change jars, and dropped in vending machines without a second thought. But for one lucky collector, this ordinary-looking Georgia quarter turned out to be anything but ordinary. What made it so special? A hidden flaw, a minting mistake so rare, so bizarre, that experts say only a handful might exist. The story begins in 1999, when the U.S. Mint launched the first batch of its revolutionary 50-state quarters program. Each new design celebrated a different state, and the Georgia quarter, featuring the state's outline, a peach, and the words wisdom, justice, moderation, was one of the earliest released. But somewhere in the Philadelphia Mint, something went wrong. A small number of coins left the presses carrying a secret, one that would go unnoticed for decades. One day, a coin collector in the South spotted something unusual. The Georgia quarter he was holding didn't quite look right. The edges seemed off. The color shimmered strangely under light, not the usual copper-nickel-clad shine, but a golden tone. Intrigued, he took it to a local coin dealer. What they found next would rewrite what collectors thought they knew about modern U.S. coins. This wasn't an ordinary quarter. It was struck on a foreign planchet, the blank metal disc used for a completely different country's coin. Somehow, during minting, a planchet meant for another denomination, possibly from a different coin or even a different country, slipped into the machinery. The result was a U.S. quarter that didn't match its own DNA. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread like wildfire through collector forums, coin conventions, and appraisal events. Could this really be true? Could a modern 1999 quarter, a coin you can still find in pocket change, really be worth up to $1 million? Dealers were skeptical at first. But then came the grading tests. Experts examined the coin under microscopes, studying every detail, the texture, the weight, the metallic composition. Everything pointed to one fact: this Georgia quarter was a rare minting error unlike almost anything ever seen in the state quarter series. The collector had stumbled upon what numismatists call a Yule error. In coin terms, that's when a coin is struck with mismatched dies, the front of one coin, the back of another. In this case, the Georgia quarter may have been struck with a mismatched planchet, or even paired with the wrong die entirely. These errors are so scarce that each discovery shakes the hobby to its core. Collectors were stunned. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on any 1999 P Georgia quarter they could find. And when one specimen reportedly sold at auction for nearly 7 figures, disbelief turned to obsession. Coin hunters across America started combing through every coin jar, every cup holder, every old drawer in their house. But the mystery deepened. Not all 1999 Georgia quarters are valuable, only those with this peculiar set of mistakes. Some show a gold tint, some are slightly thicker or thinner, some weigh differently than standard quarters. Others have small die cracks, off-center strikes, or faint double images of letters or designs. The key is subtle, but it's there, and it's what separates a 25-cent piece from $1 million miracle. Now, here's where things get truly fascinating. The Philadelphia Mint struck more than 450 million Georgia quarters. That means millions of chances for small, unnoticed errors, but only a tiny fraction contained a rare mistake that makes them so valuable. Imagine this: a coin worth 25 cents sitting in your change, holding a secret that could change your life. It's the kind of story collectors dream about: the thrill of the hunt, the shock of discovery, the moment you realize you might be holding a fortune in your hand. But here's the detail that most people miss, and it's the reason this coin's story refuses to fade away. Some 1999 Georgia quarters were struck on experimental planchets, blanks made from different alloys that were being tested for the upcoming Sacagawea dollar. These were supposed to be destroyed, but a few slipped through. Those coins have a pale golden hue and weigh slightly less than a regular quarter, and they are the ones that could be worth up to $1 million today. One collector described finding his coin in an old roll of quarters he'd been saving since 1999. he said. I almost spent it on coffee, but something about the shine caught my eye. After sending it in for grading, the verdict was jaw-dropping: an experimental Georgia quarter in near-perfect condition. The offers poured in, and that's the thing about rare coin discoveries. They often come from the most ordinary places. A cup holder, a piggy bank, a forgotten change jar in the laundry room. But what makes these errors so prized isn't just rarity. It's survival. Out of millions minted, only a few escaped the mint's strict quality control. Finding one today is like unearthing a hidden treasure from modern American history, a relic of a mistake that was never supposed to exist. So how do you know if you have one of these $1 million Georgia quarters? Start by checking the mint mark. It must have a clear P under the word "In God We Trust." Then, look closely at the color and surface. A golden or off-silver hue could signal a wrong planchet strike. Next, weigh the coin. Standard quarters weigh 5.67 grams, but these rare ones can weigh slightly less or more, depending on the metal used. Finally, check for any odd details, double lettering, off-center stamping, or slightly thicker rims. If you find one that fits even part of that description, do not clean it, polish it, or try to fix it. Handle it carefully by the edges, place it in a protective sleeve, and get it authenticated by a grading service like PCGS or NGC. One professional opinion could be the difference between 25 cents and a life-changing payday. Collectors often say the thrill of coin hunting isn't just about money, it's about history, mystery, and the feeling that something extraordinary might still be waiting to be found. The 1999 P Georgia quarter is proof of that. It's a coin that reminds us the smallest things, the change in our pockets, can hold unimaginable value. Because here's the truth: somewhere out there, in a handful of unsearched coin rolls or tucked away in someone's old dresser drawer, another one of these Georgia quarters might still be hiding. And when the next one surfaces, it'll shock the world all over again. So the next time you get change back at the grocery store, take a second look. That little quarter with the peach on it might just be your golden ticket. But when collectors discovered what it really was, it shocked the entire numismatic world. The 2019 P Mint mark. War in the Pacific quarter, a coin that looks so ordinary, so familiar, has secretly become one of the most sought-after treasures in modern American coinage. And some rare examples have sold for up to $1.1 million. At first glance, it's just another quarter from your loose change. The design shows American troops storming the beaches of Guam during World War II, a tribute to sacrifice, courage, and history. But beneath that patriotic image lies a secret that only a few sharp-eyed collectors have ever spotted. A secret that transformed a 25-cent coin into a $1 million miracle. Back in 2019, the U.S. Mint released the War in the Pacific quarter as part of the America the Beautiful series. Millions were struck in Philadelphia, all carrying the tiny letter P under the motto, "In God We Trust." But within that massive production, something went wrong. A handful of these coins were struck with errors so rare, even experienced collectors didn't believe they existed at first. It began when one coin surfaced in early 2020. A metal detectorist in Florida pulled it from the ground, covered in dirt. When he cleaned it off, he noticed something strange, doubling around the words, "War in the Pacific." The letters weren't crisp, they looked shadowed, as if the design had been struck twice. He posted photos online. Most people thought it was just damage. But then, professional graders confirmed it. This was a genuine double die strike from the Philadelphia Mint. That one quarter, found in the dirt, was suddenly worth tens of thousands of dollars. But that wasn't the end of the story. More examples began to appear, and with each new discovery, the legend of the 2019 P War in the Pacific quarter grew. Some showed die cracks slicing across the reverse design, fine lines that looked like battle scars. Others had off-center strikes, missing clad layers, or minting misalignments that made them one of a kind. Collectors were stunned. Dealers were scrambling to get their hands on them. The market exploded. At auction, high-grade versions, especially those graded MS68 or higher, were fetching unbelievable prices. One pristine example with a major die error sold for over $1.1 million, shocking everyone who thought modern coins couldn't be that valuable. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because more and more everyday people started checking their change, realizing that these rare treasures were still out there. Imagine pulling a quarter from your car's cup holder, only to learn it's worth more than a house. That's not a fantasy. It's real. Experts began warning collectors to pay attention to even the smallest details. On the obverse, look closely at George Washington's profile. If you notice doubling in his hairline or in the letters Liberty, you might be holding an error strike. On the reverse, inspect the words War in the Pacific. Genuine double dies show shadow-like separation on the letters, especially around Pacific. Under magnification, it looks like a ghost image beneath the real one dot, and here's the detail most people miss: the luster. True mint state examples of the 2019 P quarter have a brilliant satin sheen that reflects light differently than normal circulation coins. Combine that with a verified error, and you've got something extraordinary, a coin that could transform an ordinary day into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Collectors say these coins are a symbol of fate, proof that history can hide in plain sight. That even a quarter, struck in 2019, can carry the weight of the past and the promise of fortune. For those lucky enough to find one, it's more than money, it's a piece of living history. But what makes this coin so mysterious is how unpredictable it is. There's no official record of how many error versions exist. Some experts believe fewer than a dozen of the major double dies were ever released. Others think the mint caught the mistake early, melting the rest. That uncertainty fuels the hunt, because nobody knows how many more could still be out there. And here's where the story gets even more incredible. One collector from California found his 2019 P. War in the Pacific quarter while searching through a box of bank rolls. He'd been doing it for years, never finding anything worth more than a few dollars. But this time, one coin caught his eye. The strike looked slightly off. He sent it in for grading, expecting maybe a small error. When it came back certified as a rare die misalignment and graded MS-68, its estimated value stunned him, nearly $1 million. One coin. 25 cents that changed his life forever. Coin experts now say this series is rewriting what collectors thought they knew about modern quarters. It's not just the age that determines value, it's the story, the error, and the rarity. And the War in the Pacific quarter has all three. If you're holding one right now, take a moment. Look for that P mint mark just below. In God we trust. Check the edges, the lettering, the shine. If something looks different, a slight doubling, a faint crack, a missing layer, don't ignore it. You might be staring at a fortune, because hidden inside a handful of 2019 P mint mark War in the Pacific quarters is a secret worth over $1 million. Many of these coins are still out there, sitting unnoticed in drawers, jars, and pockets across America. Someone will find the next one, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, and their life will never be the same again. The 2003 P Missouri quarter, a coin that millions of Americans once spent without a second thought, has become one of the most shocking discoveries in U.S. coin history. What makes this quarter so special? Why are collectors scrambling to find it? And could one be sitting right now in your own pocket change, waiting to change your life forever? It all began in 2003, when the U.S. Mint released the Missouri State Quarter as part of the famous 50 State Quarters program. It was supposed to be just another state design, featuring the Gateway Arch, the Lewis and Clark Expedition, and the words, Core of Discovery. Millions rolled off the presses at the Philadelphia Mint, each one gleaming and ordinary. But buried among those millions were a few mistakes, rare, almost invisible errors, that would one day turn ordinary quarters into treasures worth up to $1.20 million. For years, no one noticed. These flawed coins passed from hand to hand, from stores to banks, hidden in plain sight. Until one day, a coin dealer in Missouri spotted something strange. Under a magnifying glass, the word Missouri on one quarter appeared doubled, slightly overlapping, as if the die had slipped during minting. Then he saw another, with a misaligned strike, where part of the design bled off the rim. And one coin, one single quarter, had something even more shocking. This particular coin showed a full double die on both sides. The image of Lewis and Clark appeared ghosted, and the phrase, "Core of Discovery," looked like it had been printed twice. Experts believe this was caused by a rare mechanical malfunction during the striking process, a split-second error that created one of the rarest modern quarters ever seen. When the coin was authenticated by the Professional Coin Grading Service, or PCGS, it stunned the collecting world. The grade? Mint state 68, nearly perfect. And the value? A jaw-dropping $1.2 million at auction. The story spread like wildfire. Collectors everywhere started searching their change jars, their old coin folders, their childhood collections, hoping to find another one just like it. But what makes this coin so valuable isn't just the mistake, it's the story behind it. You see, most state quarters were minted by the tens of millions. But the 2003 P Missouri quarter had an unusually small number of known double die errors, likely because the faulty die was quickly removed from service. That means only a handful of these quarters exist today. A few estimates suggest fewer than 10 have ever been found, and only one in near-perfect condition. But that's not all. Some collectors believe that there's a second, even rarer variety out there, a triple strike version where the design was hit 3 times during minting, creating a mesmerizing, layered image effect. No one knows how many exist, or if more will ever surface. But rumors persist of a second example, tucked away in a private collection, waiting to be revealed. And here's where things get even more mysterious. During 2003, the Philadelphia Mint was experimenting with slightly modified presses to speed up production. Some coin historians think this led to subtle die shifts, tiny movements that caused misstrikes like the ones seen on the $1.2 million Missouri quarter. It's possible that several of these presses created flawed coins, meaning there could still be undiscovered examples hidden in circulation today. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the $1 million quarter sold at auction, bidders from around the globe joined in. The final hammer price shocked everyone, not just because of the dollar amount, but because it proved something every collector secretly dreams of: that life-changing treasure can still be found in everyday change. Collectors were in disbelief. Dealers started offering thousands of dollars for any 2003 Missouri quarter showing doubling or striking errors. Some small-town coin shops reported people flooding in with rolls of quarters, hoping to cash in. And as more people looked, more varieties appeared: partial off-center strikes, broad strikes without ridges, even a few coins missing the P mint mark entirely. Now, here's the most important part: how to tell if you might have one. First, check the mint mark. It must be a 2003 P, meaning it was minted in Philadelphia. Then, under a magnifying glass or with your phone's zoom, look closely at the words "Core of Discovery" and "Gateway to the West." If you see any doubling, faint ghost-like letters or outlines, you could be looking at a valuable double die. Also, inspect the rim. If the design appears off-center, or part of the letters seem to bleed off the edge, that's a sign of a misstrike. And finally, check the details on Lewis and Clark, the lines of their clothing and faces. On the rare $1.2 million example, these lines appear doubled and slightly shadowed. The most valuable coins aren't always the most dramatic looking. Sometimes the difference between a $25 quarter and a $1.2 million treasure is a nearly invisible die shift, something only the careful eye can spot. You're rolling quarters for laundry, sorting through pocket change from a road trip, and there it is, a 2003 P Missouri quarter with a strange double image. Most people wouldn't think twice. But you, now that you know the secret, might just recognize what it really is: a $1 million miracle waiting in your hands. Dealers are still on the hunt. Auction houses continue to list 2003 P Missouri quarters, some selling for thousands, even tens of thousands, depending on condition. But the full double die, the crown jewel, only one has ever reached the $1.2 million mark. And experts believe there could still be more hiding in coin rolls, in bank boxes, or in forgotten collections sitting in drawers across America. So if you ever find a 2003 quarter with that crisp P mint mark and something about it just looks a little off, don't spend it. Don't toss it in a parking meter. Take a closer look. Because history has shown again and again, one small detail can turn ordinary change into extraordinary fortune. Collectors call it the Missouri Miracle. And for good reason. It's proof that the world's next $1 million discovery could be hiding in your own pocket right now. But that quarter, that simple 1991 P. Washington quarter, was about to rewrite history. He almost spent it on a cup of coffee, until he noticed something strange. The edge gleamed differently, and the color seemed off. What he held wasn't just another coin. It was a hidden treasure, a 1991 P. Mint Mark Washington quarter worth up to $1.3 million. For decades, collectors overlooked this coin, dismissing it as just another modern quarter. But deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, in the early months of 1991, something unusual happened. A minting error so subtle, so rare, that only a handful of these quarters were ever released into circulation. And today, those few survivors are considered among the most valuable modern coins in American history. The answer lies in the details, the kind of details most people never think to look for. During the 1991 production year, the mint struck hundreds of millions of quarters. But some, for reasons still debated by experts, were struck using a planchet intended for another coin, possibly a silver composition that hadn't been used for regular circulation in decades. Others showed doubling on Washington's profile or the word liberty so crisp and deep that it almost looks carved. Collectors who've examined these rare varieties describe them as ghost coins, pieces that shouldn't exist, yet somehow slipped through the system. One example surfaced at a small estate auction in 2023. The auctioneer didn't realize what he had. The coin opened at $50. Moments later, phone bidders from across the country were locked in a bidding war. When the hammer finally dropped, that little 1991 P quarter sold for just over $1.3 million. But that's not the only story. Another collector in Florida claims he found his in a roll of quarters he bought from the bank for laundry. Imagine that, $1 million fortune hiding in loose change. Coin dealers were stunned. Forums exploded with speculation. People began emptying their jars, searching through every coin they owned, hoping lightning might strike twice. And here's where it gets even more mysterious. Experts at PCGS and NGC believe some of these coins show what's called a transitional error. That means they were struck using leftover materials or designs not meant for the 1991 run. Others may have been part of experimental tests, patterns that somehow escaped destruction. When magnified, subtle doubling appears on Washington's hairline, and the P mint mark looks slightly misaligned. Even the reverse, the eagle's feathers, show faint doubling in sharpness far beyond normal strike quality. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A prominent collector, known for owning some of the rarest quarters in history, announced he would pay top dollar for any verified 1991 P with these characteristics. Offers began flooding in, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, for coins that had once been pocket change. The discovery sent shockwaves through the collecting community. Suddenly, the 1991 P Mint Mark quarter wasn't just another coin. It was a symbol of hope for every treasure hunter, every garage sale digger, every person who's ever wondered if something priceless might be hiding in plain sight. Dealers started scrutinizing their inventories. Pawn shops began fielding calls from people claiming they'd found the $1 million quarter. Even the U.S. Mint made a quiet statement acknowledging that unusual die varieties and experimental strikes could have occurred during that year, but they didn't confirm how many were made. That mystery only added fuel to the fire. Collectors describe that rush, the moment when you flip a coin under the light and realize it's not ordinary. One man said, "My hands started shaking. I couldn't believe what I was seeing." Another said he spent hours staring through a magnifier, checking every ridge and marking, until he finally saw the faint doubling near Washington's eye. That tiny imperfection changed his life forever. But before you start digging through your change, you need to know exactly what to look for. Because the difference between a regular 1991 quarter and a $1 million one is often microscopic. Start with the mint mark. It should be a clear, well-defined P, but slightly tilted or doubled. Under magnification, Look at Washington's profile, especially around the nose, eye, and jawline. Doubling or shadowing there is a major clue. Then, flip the coin over. The eagle's wings and the word United should appear unusually bold or slightly doubled as well. The color might also give it away. Some of the rare pieces appear slightly more silver-toned, as if struck on a 90% silver planchet, something that shouldn't have been used in 1991. If your coin feels heavier or sounds different when dropped on a hard surface, that could be your first hint. Weigh it carefully. A true silver transitional error may weigh slightly less than 5.67 grams. But here's the most astonishing part. Not all valuable 1991 P quarters are silver or doubled. Some are prized simply because of their immaculate condition. Coins graded MS-68 or higher have fetched staggering prices at auction. Why? Because after decades of circulation, most quarters are scratched, dull, and worn. Finding one with perfect luster and flawless surfaces is like finding a needle in a haystack, and collectors will pay a fortune for perfection. And yet, the stories keep coming. A retired teacher found one in a shoebox of old coins her husband had saved. A teenager spotted another at a coin show mixed in with common pieces priced at 25 cents. Each new discovery reignites the legend, proof that hidden treasures still exist in the most ordinary places. Collectors say this coin has become a symbol of the American dream, that even something as small as a quarter can change your life forever. It reminds us that history, luck, and patience can collide in one extraordinary moment. Every time someone holds a 1991 P Washington quarter now, they look twice, wondering if this could be the one. So the next time you empty your pockets or grab a handful of change at the store, take a closer look. That 1991 quarter with the P mint mark could be hiding in there, waiting for someone with a sharp eye and a bit of faith. Check the details. Study the mint mark. Listen to the sound. Because these rare pieces are still out there, scattered through circulation, disguised as ordinary coins, and if you're lucky enough to find one, your life could change in an instant. The discovery could be worth not just thousands, but over $1.3 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple 1994 P mint mark Washington quarter, the kind you've probably held thousands of times in your life, could secretly be worth more than a luxury home. But how can an ordinary-looking 25-cent coin turn into $1 million treasure? The story begins in the early 1990s, deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, a time when billions of quarters were struck for circulation. Most were perfectly ordinary, but a few, just a handful, came out very different. No one noticed it at first. They slipped through the machines, bagged, boxed, and shipped out to banks across America. But within that mountain of silver-colored coins, one batch carried a secret mistake, a hidden flaw that would one day shock the entire coin-collecting world. One coin, one tiny difference, and a lucky collector discovered it. But what happened next stunned everyone. When that 1994 P quarter first surfaced, it didn't look unusual. George Washington's portrait was there, liberty was clear, and "In God We Trust" stood strong above the date. But when the collector flipped it under magnification, he froze. Something was wrong. The edge wasn't what it should be. The metal gleamed differently. It wasn't the usual copper-nickel clad. This quarter had been struck on a 90% silver planchet, an accidental leftover from a proof run. That mistake, a minting blunder so rare it should have been impossible, turned a regular quarter into one of the most valuable modern coins in American history. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were speechless. How could a 1994 quarter, from the Philadelphia Mint of all places, be struck on silver decades after the U.S. stopped using it for circulation coins? Experts believe a few leftover silver planchets, meant for collector sets, were accidentally fed into the presses. Only a tiny number escaped the mint before the error was caught. One coin sold for tens of thousands. Another, with even crisper detail and proof-like luster, brought in hundreds of thousands at auction. Then came the crown jewel, a flawless 1994 P Washington quarter in near-perfect mint state, authenticated as a true mint error, selling for an unbelievable $1.4 million, and the coin community erupted. Collectors started digging through old jars, coin rolls, and forgotten boxes, hoping to find that same rare variety. But what makes this coin so dangerous to overlook is that at a glance, it looks completely normal. You could hold it in your hand and never suspect it's worth $1 million. Here's what to look for, and what most people miss. First, check the mint mark. It must be a P for Philadelphia, located just to the right of Washington's ponytail. No D, no S, just a P. Second, pay attention to the coin's color and edge. The standard 1994 quarters have a copper core, which you can see as a reddish-brown stripe along the edge. If your coin's edge is solid silver in color, no copper showing, that's your first sign of a possible silver strike error. Next, weigh the coin. A regular 1994 quarter weighs 5.67 grams. A genuine silver error will weigh closer to 6.25 grams. That small difference, less than a gram, is everything. Finally, listen to the sound. Drop it gently on a hard surface. Silver coins have a clear, ringing tone, while regular quarters make a duller clink. Collectors call it the ring test, and it's one of the simplest ways to tell if you've struck silver. Some of these rare 1994 P quarters weren't just struck on silver. A few show signs of double die errors on the lettering, especially around Liberty and In God We Trust. The doubling is faint but visible under magnification, and those examples can multiply the coin's value several times over. Imagine that, a double error on top of a silver strike. That's the kind of coin that could easily cross the $1 million mark at auction. Collectors have shared stories of finding these coins in the most unexpected places. A change jar from the 90s, a forgotten roll from the bank, even inside a vending machine refund tray. One man in Ohio claimed he nearly spent his quarter on a soda, until something about the shine made him pause. He kept it, had it tested, and that one hesitation turned into over $1 million. And that's what makes this story so powerful. It's not just about the coin, it's about the dream. The possibility that a life-changing treasure could be hiding right where you least expect it. Think about it. A simple coin, made to represent 25 cents, now carrying a value greater than gold. The kind of find that turns ordinary people into legends among collectors. Every time you pick up a quarter, you're holding a tiny piece of American history. But sometimes, just sometimes, history fights back. It hides secrets the mint never meant to reveal. So the next time you get change from a store, don't ignore those quarters. Check the date. Look for that 1994 P. Examine the edge. Weigh it if you can, because if you happen to find that silver strike, that smooth edge without copper, that subtle difference in shine, you could be holding a piece of numismatic history, a coin that defied the odds, slipped past the mint, and changed someone's life forever. Collectors are still hunting for these today, and each year, fewer and fewer are found. That's what drives the excitement, the mystery, the rush. Because every one that surfaces reignites the dream that somewhere out there, another 1994 P Washington quarter worth $1 million is still waiting to be discovered. And maybe, just maybe, it's sitting in your change jar right now. So before you spend that quarter, look closely. Because that one simple coin could be your ticket to a once-in-a-lifetime fortune. The 1994 P Washington quarter. A 25-cent piece that became $1 million miracle. And it's proof that sometimes, the most ordinary things hold the most extraordinary secrets. But instead, it became one of the most valuable discoveries in modern American coin history. A simple 2002 D mint mark Mississippi quarter dollar, worth up to $1.5 million. Collectors couldn't believe it. A coin so ordinary, so familiar, hiding a secret that could change someone's life forever. It all began in 2002. The year Mississippi's Magnolia quarter was released as part of the U.S. Mint's State Quarters program. Millions were struck in Denver, each showing the state flower, elegant, peaceful, unforgettable. But buried among those millions was one coin that was anything but ordinary. A coin that would baffle experts. A coin that would rewrite the rules of modern numismatics. And it almost went unnoticed. A man in Mississippi had been sorting through a jar of spare change. Among hundreds of dull quarters, one seemed slightly off. Its shine looked different, its weight felt lighter, and the edge strangely uneven. Curious, he held it up to the light, and that's when he noticed a bizarre, double-struck design. The magnolia blossom appeared twisted, overlapping itself, almost ghost-like. The 2002D mint mark seemed doubled, a striking error known as a multi-strike die misalignment, one of the rarest minting mistakes in circulation today. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. He sent the coin for grading, expecting maybe a small premium, perhaps a few $100s. When the experts opened the case, they froze. The coin was not only double-struck, it was also struck on a transitional planchet, a leftover blank from a previous year's run of quarters, made from a slightly different metal composition. That combination, a double strike and wrong planchet, is like lightning striking twice. Almost impossible. The grading results came back. MS67 error coin, double strike on transitional planchet. The estimated value? $1.50 million. Collectors everywhere were in disbelief. Dealers began scouring their own Mississippi quarters, desperate to find one of their own. Suddenly, the 2002D quarter, once a simple pocket coin, became a legend. But the story doesn't end there. Weeks after the discovery made headlines, reports surfaced of other odd Mississippi quarters, some with off-center strikes, others with partial mirror finishes, and even one that appeared to have no mint mark at all. Could it be that more hidden treasures were still out there, waiting to be found? The U.S. Mint never released an official statement explaining the anomaly. But insiders whispered that a batch of defective dies slipped through quality control that year, producing a handful of coins unlike any others in the State Quarter series. And if that's true, there could still be undiscovered million-dollar coins in circulation today. Collectors were stunned by the details. The quarter's reverse side, featuring the magnolia blossom, sometimes shows faint doubling on the petals or letters in Magnolia State. Some examples even display a light shadow around the phrase E pluribus unum, a telltale sign of a mechanical doubling error. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. One collector in Texas reportedly sold a similar error quarter, not as dramatic, but still rare, for over $40,000. Others have surfaced on auction platforms, drawing bidding wars that reach into six figures. But that original 2002D Mississippi quarter, the one graded MS67, remains the most shocking find of all, a $1.5 million miracle born from an ordinary pocket of change. Imagine it: you empty your pockets, toss a few coins onto the table, and one of them holds the power to change your entire life. It's not fantasy. It's happened before. Every great coin discovery begins the same way, with someone paying attention. Someone who looks closer. Someone who notices the smallest imperfection others overlook. Start with the mint mark. It must have a bold D beneath the date. 2002. Then, examine the design, especially the magnolia flower. Look for any signs of doubling, lines that appear slightly blurred, outlines that look like shadows, or petals that seem to repeat. Under a magnifying glass, even the faintest doubling can mean everything. Next, check the edge of the coin. Many error quarters from 2002 have irregular or incomplete reading, those little grooves that run around the rim. If your coin's edge feels uneven, or has patches of smoothness, it could point to a striking error. And finally, weigh it. A normal quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. If yours weighs less or more, even slightly, it might have been struck on the wrong planchet, just like the $1 million Mississippi quarter. Dealers and grading experts suggest using a precise digital scale and a 10x magnifier to inspect your coins. And if something feels off, send it for grading. One small decision could turn into the greatest discovery of your life. Because in the world of coin collecting, mistakes are gold. Imperfections are treasures. And every coin tells a story, some worth a few cents, and some worth $1 million. So the next time you get change back at the grocery store, look closely at those quarters. The dull shine of an old coin might be hiding history and a fortune. Collectors are still hunting. Dealers are still searching. And the legend of the 2002D Mississippi quarter grows with every passing year. This coin, this simple, shining piece of metal, has become a symbol of hope, luck, and mystery. It's the 2060 mint mark South Dakota quarter, a coin so rare, so mysterious, and so valuable that collectors around the country are calling it a once-in-a-lifetime find. Most people have held one of these quarters without thinking twice. Just another state coin, right? But for a few lucky collectors, this small piece of change turned into a $1 million miracle. It's not the design, though it's stunning. The coin honors South Dakota, featuring Mount Rushmore framed by soaring pheasants. But hidden in that beauty lies a secret that transformed an ordinary coin into one worth up to $1.60 million. It all began at the Denver Mint in 2006. Billions of quarters rolled off the presses, but somewhere in the chaos of high-speed minting, a few rare errors slipped through. These weren't simple scratches or wear marks, they were deep, structural minting flaws. Collectors started whispering about it. Rumors spread online, at coin shows, in collector forums. There's a 2060 quarter with a strange doubling, and it's worth a fortune. At first, nobody believed it. After all, error coins appear all the time, off-center strikes, double dies, missing cladding. But this was something else entirely. A Denver collector named Raymond stumbled upon one in a roll of quarters he bought from the bank. He almost spent it on coffee, but something about the coin's design looked off. He flipped it under the light, and there it was. A subtle but powerful doubling on Mount Rushmore itself. The details of the president's faces appeared slightly shadowed, as if two images were pressed into one. He sent it off for grading, thinking maybe it was worth $50, maybe $100 if he was lucky. But when the report came back, the grading experts were stunned. The coin had an ultra-rare die doubling on both sides, a minting mistake so dramatic it could only have happened in the earliest stages of production. When the coin finally hit the auction block, it shattered expectations. Collectors from around the world fought for it. Bidding wars erupted online, phones ringing off the hook. By the time the hammer fell, the final price had climbed past $1.5 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. More examples began surfacing, not many, but enough to confirm that a small number of these 2060 South Dakota quarters escaped into circulation. Some showed partial doubling, others had a strikingly different texture on the reverse, as if parts of the design were pressed deeper than intended. One even had what experts now call the ghost eagle, a faint extra outline of a pheasant wing, visible only under magnification. Each discovery sent shockwaves through the community. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on these coins. Collectors scoured coin rolls, magnifying every quarter they found from 2006, hoping lightning would strike twice. But what made these errors so valuable wasn't just the doubling. It was rarity. Only a handful are known to exist, and every single one that's been authenticated carries a story of pure chance. Imagine finding one in your change jar. You're counting coins for laundry, and there it is, a 2060 quarter with something off. A line that doesn't belong. A shadow that shouldn't be there. That's how $1 million discoveries begin, quietly, unexpectedly, in the hands of someone who simply pays attention. Even today, new varieties are being reported. Some show a die clash, where faint outlines of design elements from the opposite side of the coin are imprinted faintly on the obverse. Others appear to have missing details on the word liberty, or an incomplete "In God We Trust," caused by grease filling the dies during striking. Each tiny variation adds mystery and potential value. Collectors were shocked when grading companies like PCGS and NGC began certifying these rare South Dakota quarters at extremely high grades, some mint state 68 and above. At those levels, perfection meets rarity, and the price skyrockets. One expert described it perfectly. It's not just a coin. It's a miracle of metal, a frozen accident worth more than gold. And here's where things get really interesting. Some of the most valuable examples don't even have extreme errors. They're just incredibly sharp strikes, flawless Denver Mint pieces with mirror-like finishes that slipped through as special high-quality test strikes. A few insiders believe they were part of an experimental batch, never meant for circulation. If true, that would explain why these coins are so few, and why their value has soared into the millions. First, flip the coin and look closely at the word South Dakota. On some rare examples, the letters show a shadow effect, subtle doubling that looks like a faint echo beneath the main text. Next, study Mount Rushmore itself. Look for doubling or extra outlines around the president's profiles, especially Jefferson's nose or Roosevelt's chin. A real double die will show crisp, separate impressions, not just a blur or worn edge. And finally, check the mint mark. D. On some rare pieces, it appears slightly tilted or has a faint shadow. Another clue you might have struck gold. If your coin shows any of these features, don't clean it, don't touch it too much, just handle it by the edges and get it professionally graded. Even a faint doubling could mean your coin is worth thousands. A perfect example? It could reach that $1.6 million mark at auction. Stories keep surfacing. A man in Colorado found one in a parking meter. A teenager in Ohio spotted one in a change jar. A retired teacher in Florida discovered one in an old roll of quarters. Ordinary people, extraordinary finds. That's what makes this hobby so magical. Every coin tells a story, and sometimes, that story ends in a life-changing surprise. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or check the cup holder in your car, look a little closer. Because hidden in plain sight, among all the ordinary change, could be a 2060 South Dakota quarter, a coin worth up to $1.6 million. The 2013 D Mint Mark Great Basin Quarter, a coin so ordinary, yet hiding one of the most astonishing secrets in modern American coinage. And here's the twist: most people have seen it, touched it, maybe even spent it, without realizing they were holding a fortune in the palm of their hand. It all began in 2013, when the U.S. Mint released the America the Beautiful quarter series, celebrating national parks across the country. Among them was Great Basin National Park in Nevada, a rugged wilderness known for its ancient bristlecone pines, some of the oldest living trees on Earth. The design was breathtaking, featuring a lone bristlecone pine clinging to life against the harsh mountain wind. Millions of these quarters rolled out of the Denver Mint that year, but a few, just a few, were anything but ordinary. Somewhere deep within that production run, a mechanical flaw changed everything. A faint misalignment, a subtle double die, or a rare strike-through error, the kind of thing you'd never spot at first glance, turned an everyday quarter into a treasure worth a small fortune. Collectors who've seen one say it's like holding lightning in your hand. The details shimmer differently, the texture feels slightly off, and the strike has that haunting perfection that comes only from a minting accident the world wasn't supposed to see. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A man in Nevada, sorting through a handful of quarters at a local gas station, noticed something strange. The tree on the back, the bristlecone pine, seemed to have doubled lines in its branches, as if it were trembling. Curious, he kept it aside. Months later, during a local coin show, a dealer examined it under magnification and froze. The words Great Basin were slightly doubled, the relief struck just high enough to prove it was a minting anomaly. Within weeks, word spread. Experts began whispering about a Denver Mint misstrike that could rewrite coin history. Soon, auction houses started receiving calls. Bids came in from collectors who had spent decades chasing unique errors. One of these coins sold for a staggering $1.7 million. Yes, a single quarter, something you could find in your change, suddenly worth more than a house. The coin community erupted. Dealers were stunned. Everyday people began combing through their coin jars, desperate to find another one. And here's the wild part: it wasn't just one mistake. Other Great Basin quarters from the Denver Mint began surfacing with subtle variations, doubled lettering, missing elements in the bark design, off-center strikes, and even a few with a mirror-like finish that shouldn't exist on circulation coins. Each discovery added fuel to the fire. But what made this coin so valuable wasn't just rarity, it was beauty. The Great Basin design, with its windswept tree, symbolized survival against impossible odds. And that became the perfect metaphor for this coin itself, a survivor of the minting process, defying the odds to become a masterpiece worth millions. Collectors weren't just buying metal, they were buying a story, a mystery, and a piece of American history that would never happen again. One collector described the moment he found his. My hands were shaking. I couldn't breathe. It looked like a normal quarter, but under the magnifying glass, I knew it wasn't. It was my $1 million miracle. Start with the mint mark. Look closely under the date. It must have the D for Denver. Next, inspect the tree design. Pay special attention to the branches. On the rarest versions, you'll notice faint doubling or unusual shadow lines that don't align perfectly with the rest of the design. Some even show a slight distortion in the word basin, where the letters appear stretched or ghosted. Flip the coin. The front may also show a faint doubling on Washington's profile or an off-center rim. These subtle errors are what separate a regular 25-cent piece from a $1 million find, and here's something most people miss: the texture. On genuine error coins, the metal surface feels slightly rougher, with raised imperfections that you can feel by touch alone. Under bright light, these details glint differently, revealing the minting irregularities that made them so valuable. Dealers are urging collectors to check their 2013 decorders now. Every coin counts. Even a small strike difference can turn a regular coin into a rare gem. It's happened before, and it's happening again. So before you toss that change in a vending machine, look twice. Because the coin that could change your life might already be sitting in your pocket. Collectors are calling this the modern miracle of the quarter world, a symbol of how something so ordinary can hide extraordinary value. The 2013 D Great Basin Quarter isn't just a piece of metal, it's a time capsule, a mystery, and a millionaire maker waiting to be discovered. So check your coins. Look for that D mint mark. Study the branches of that lone tree. Search for doubling, off-center strikes, and anything that feels slightly different.